Today we have a provocative subject about judgment. The topic we've chosen to speak about today is judgment is a here thing, not a there thing. So what do I mean by here and there? By here, I mean here in this physical existence. There, I mean beyond the veil, on the other side, where we go after we die. So judgment is a here thing, not a there thing. So many of us like to believe that that those who commit atrocities will be judged and punished when they die. And it doesn't sit right for a lot of people to hear that we are all loved and people are not judged. And so I would like you to hear me out. I'm coming from the perspective of the near-death experience I had, from the perspective of what it actually felt to be on the other side, what it actually felt like to be dead. And you can draw your own conclusions at the end of it. But I will explain to you from my perspective how it appears to be almost of no value to have judgment on the other side, because the spoiler alert is that everything becomes known anyway as to why you do what you do. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I had spent a lifetime judging myself, and I'm going to give you many different reasons why, apart from actually experiencing no judgment on the other side, I'm going to give you many different reasons why it is of no benefit and possibly even purely a human creation, why we like the idea of there being judgment on the other side. So I spent a lifetime of, being a people pleaser and all, but I did do a lot of things that were judged by our culture, our society, as being wrong or bad. Things like, which may not be considered bad in every culture, but the thing is that certainly in the culture I grew up in was considered as definitely not good things. I hurt people because I did run away from an arranged marriage. I hurt the groom's family. I hurt my own family. I was ostracized from my community and so on. When I actually crossed over into the other realm and I encountered the soul or the spirit or the essence of my deceased father, my deceased dad, I expected overall not only to be judged by him for causing him so much shame and embarrassment, but also by whatever it is on the other side, whether we want to call it God or universal energy or whatever we want to call it. I expected judgment for all the things I had done wrong. I expected like maybe I would get praise for all the things I'd done right as well, but I certainly expected judgment for the things I'd done wrong. But when I crossed over, I realized that not only do we leave behind our physical bodies when we cross to the other realm, but I realized that we also leave behind our gender, our culture, our race, our religion, our beliefs, all the layers and layers of cultural beliefs that we have accumulated over a lifetime. We leave all of those behind. And when I left all of this behind, I realized that what crosses over was my pure essence, just my pure essence. So, in other words, all these things from this life are not who we truly are. Who we truly are is something much deeper. It's our pure essence, our spirit, our soul. It's pure love, or we can call it pure God. We can call it God. We can call it whatever we want. I like to call it God or love. To me, they're one and the same thing. That is who we truly are at our core. But because of the layers we accumulate, we forget who we actually are. And we lose our way because we forget. And when we lose our way, we do things. We do things that maybe are not aligned with who we truly are, which is love or God. I always say, that there are two types of people in the world. And whenever I say there are two types of people in the world, people will always say, oh yes, the evil people and the good people, or the good and the bad people, or the negative and the positive people, and so, you know, when I ask people to guess like what the two types, that's what I usually get. But in actuality, what I truly learned when I was in that realm is that there are two types of people in the world: those who are aware they are God, and those who are not aware they are God. In other words, every single one of us is God. Every single one of us is love, or whatever we want to call it. We are pure essence, pure love, pure consciousness, pure God, whatever we want to call it. Every single one of us is that, without exception. The difference is some of us are aware of it and some of us are not. Those who are not aware of it then act out in ways of their lack of awareness of who they truly are. And there are many reasons, and I'll get into that in a moment. But when I was in the other realm, so there I was, without my culture, without my race, without my religion, without all these things, and I understood why I did everything I did. And I understood that just as much as I was a victim of my culture, so was everyone around me that caused the circumstances for me to act in the way I did. So no matter what I did, I understood why I did it. So even if I had hurt someone in a much worse way than what I had done, even if I had taken someone's life, or even if I had taken my own life, in that realm, I understood how all those layers of those beliefs and the perceptions that I had accumulated had led me to the point of believing that the only choice I had was to take that action that I had taken, which could be perceived as a negative action. But there is only clarity in that realm. And just as much as I am a victim of my beliefs, everyone around me is the victim of their beliefs, all of which contributes to the situation that causes people to act the way they do. One of the greatest reasons why people act the way they do is because of peer pressure. That's very strong. We're always torn between trying to fit in to our peers or trying to be who we truly are. And very often fitting in feels more important. And this is how we lose touch with who we truly are. And who we truly are is that pure essence, that God within us, that light that shines inside us, that person expressing itself behind our eyes. That person, that spirit, that soul that has come here pure, like when you look at a child, when you look at a baby, they are a pure soul, a pure essence that has come with an intention of doing things, of healing the world, of helping, of contributing in a good way, of being their God self. This is the intention they come with. But over the years, they get caught up in a culture of dysfunctional people. And then that soul becomes dysfunctional as well. They forget. They add layers. They add layers to this pure diamond that they are, this pure light that we are. We add layers of darkness or filters or covers or whatever we want to call it. And that's how we forget. And that's why we do certain things that are not from that God space or that love space that is within us. When I had come back from the other realm some years later, when Wayne Dyer discovered my story, I remember he brought me on TV he had me on his PBS special, which actually, the PBS special was on in March of 2006. I'm sorry. I actually came out of hospital in March of 2006. I was on his PBS special in March of 2012. And when I was on his PBS special, he asked me to share my story. And when I shared my story, it was, of course, broadcast on TV all over, certainly all over America and also in many other countries in the world. I didn't realize, but there was a young man in prison who heard my story. He saw me share my story on TV. This was just at the time when my book was coming out. It was part of the book launch for Dying to Be Me, where I speak about my experience in the other realm. And I shared my story, and Wayne asked me, as he was interviewing me on the show, he asked me about judgment, and I said, no, there is no judgment in the other realm. And then he was asking me to explain, and I explained exactly what I just told you about how everything is known, and that all there is in the other realm is pure love. There's pure love. Pure love, pure unconditional love is a state of non-duality. There is no opposite. Because if there is judgment, the judgment is a here thing, and here we live in a state of duality. In that state, there is only love. The minute you introduce judgment, what we're actually doing is projecting our emotions here, which are our emotion. We live in a state of duality, which means we have positive, negative, we have light, dark, we have bad, good. In the other realm, it's a state of non-duality, which means we don't need the opposite. We come here and we experience light and dark so that we can only know light if there is darkness. In the other realm, we don't need it. In the other realm, we understand why we did everything we did here. And there is only pure clarity, pure love. And it's pure divine love. So I was explaining this on the PBS show, and there was a young man from prison watching this, and he immediately ordered my book, Dying to Be Me. He called his sister from the prison and asked her to order it for him, and she brought it to him the next time she went to visit him. After he read my book, he actually wrote me a letter, and in the letter, he said that he was so grateful that I shared my story, because he said that he had committed a crime 20 years prior when he was 20 years old. He was straight out of college, and he did it because of peer pressure. And he knows it was the dumbest thing he could do. He was 20 years old. He was young. He had his life ahead of him. He was about to go to a fabulous college, or he was attending a fabulous college. He was doing his family really, really proud, because I think he was the first member of his family to go to college. His family were really proud of him. And then he fell into a group of people who he really wanted to belong to. And because of peer pressure, he did something that was really out of character for him, which he was not proud of. He was too ashamed, he was too ashamed to even tell me in the letter what he had done. Excuse me. He said that he was in prison for life without parole, and that indicated to me how bad his crime was. I didn't need to know what he had actually done, because that was enough of an indication. But he said that he had served 20 years already, and so he was about 40 years old, and he knew he was going to be in prison for the rest of his life. And he had come to terms with being in prison for the rest of his life. He had accepted that. But what he had found hard to accept was that he was going to pay for his crime for all of eternity after death. He found it really hard to believe or to understand how there could be no compassion for him even after he died. And he had struggled with that, and that had scared him. So he was willing to accept his punishment here in life, but he found it so hard to accept the punishment that he had been taught to believe that he was going to get after he died. And he said hearing my story on TV and reading my book brought him so much comfort that at least in death, he would be free. He would be completely free. He had already learned his lesson, and he was full of remorse and regret. And so when I received this letter for me, it was confirmation for me that sharing this, even though it was controversial, and it is provocative, and this is one of the reasons why Wayne Dyer wanted me to share it on TV, because he knew it was provocative, but he also knew that it was important. And getting letters from people like this gentleman showed me that it is important to share this, because sometimes even being involved in the wrong peer group and this need to fit in, we can make wrong choices, which only in hindsight can we see really were bad choices, which can get us into trouble. So I wanted to share that, and really nobody deserves to suffer for all of for all of eternity for something that they've done here. And whatever they've done here has been done through the layers of the filters that we've accumulated, not only from ourselves, from our own experiences, but from the people around us. So it's important to understand that. The other thing is, when we believe in judgment, we seem to believe in perhaps a God who is external from us, an external being who sits up there and judges our every move. There are a couple of issues with that. First is, if we believe that there is a God who judges our every move, it's going to make our lives contrived. I used to believe that I was very, very spiritual when I was younger, because I used to do everything from the perspective of creating the perfect afterlife. So I used to think through things, and I would do things that would that would ensure that I would have good karma, or that I wouldn't be judged in the afterlife. Now, if we truly feel that the only reason to be good in this life, or the only way to be spiritual, is to do things for the purpose of having a good afterlife, then what happens? What happened to being good for goodness itself? In other words, we actually have a bigger problem on our hands if the only reason that we are doing good things is because we is for some sort of reward in the afterlife. And then we're not really coming from our heart. The other thing it does when we believe that is that it means we start to control our behavior according to how we think we're going to be rewarded or not rewarded in the afterlife, which means we don't innately trust who we are. When we control our behavior in this way, and when we keep telling ourselves, I need to be more spiritual, I want to make sure I get good karma in the afterlife, I need to work harder at being more spiritual and meditating more and doing more good things. What this does is it sends us the signal, it's sending ourselves the signal that we are not innately good. I can't trust my innate behavior, and therefore I have to control my behavior to make sure that I don't get punished in the afterlife. And I hope that makes sense. What I'm saying makes sense. In actuality, God isn't a being that is external from us who's going to be doing the judging. When I died, I realized that God is us. It is within us. We merge with God, and God expresses itself through us. You and God are one and the same thing. So to love yourself and to love God is one and the same thing. And not only that, being yourself and being spiritual is one and the same thing. You don't have to keep working hard at being spiritual. All you have to do is be who you are, be authentic. It is one and the same. When you keep believing that you have to work at it, you become really uptight, and that's not spiritual, and that's not being yourself, because then you come from a place of doing as opposed to being. So what's the difference between doing and being? The difference is when we don't realize who we are, when we don't realize we are spiritual beings, that we are God, we are an expression of God, we don't have to seek out God, we are God, when you realize that when you're not feeling God or when you're not feeling spiritual, it means that there's something in the way, there's something blocking it. So it's not about going and doing more and being more and adding more layers, because every time you go do more, be more, pursue more, reach more, you're adding more layers. It's about letting go. It's about releasing. It's about surrendering. It's about letting go of the layers that is separating you, your mind, from feeling or experiencing the real you, the authentic you, the God you. So it's not about going and doing more and being more. It's about allowing the God to come through. It's about letting go. It's about letting go of everything that is not you, letting go of everything that is not God. A lot of people will say, why does God do this? Why did God forsake me? Why does God let bad things happen to good people? The question to ask is, why do we, as expressions of God, allow bad things to happen in this world? How did we get that way, that we even condone having guns and killing people? How did we do that? How did we come so far? Where did we go wrong? It's not about God, because there isn't some external being who's going to watch over us. It's about us. And what if you knew you were God? What if right now you awokened to the fact that you were God? What would you do? What would you do differently? What would you do in your life that's different from what you were doing before you had the realization? And that's really the way to live. The way to live is to realize that, but I am an expression of God. And to deny that, to deny who I am, to not love myself, to dim my light, would mean actually denying the facet of God that has chosen to express itself through me. So our only work really is to be all that we are, just to be everything that we came here to be, and also to relax, to completely relax, and just be really relaxed about it, and know that, many of us, we try too hard, and so we become contrived because we're trying too hard, even when we think, oh, okay, so we're God, and then we try too hard to be God. When you try too hard, again, you are sending yourself the message, the way I am is not good enough. My authentic self is not good enough. When in actuality, your authentic self, your core, that is love. That has come from spirit and will return to spirit. How can it be not good enough? How can it be anything but pure perfection? So just allow yourself to be who you are. And even when you fail, even when you fall flat on your face, love yourself through that. Don't judge yourself. The other last thing I want to say is, when we believe that there is a judgmental God that's looking out for us, what that ends up doing is that it makes us more judgmental. Have you ever heard people say, they're going to get their judgment, that I'm going to leave them to be judged by someone greater than me, and they're going to get their judgment when their time comes. What we really mean when we say things like that is, I'm judging that person as being really negative, or as having done something wrong, but I'm going to be self-righteous and not say anything and let God be the judge. So even when we say things like, oh, let God be the judge, what we're actually saying is, I don't like what they've done. I'm judging what they've done, but I'm too self-righteous to say so. So in an actuality, it's a cop-out. It's a cop-out way of judging someone. The other thing I want to just quickly add, though, is a quick word about forgiveness. When you start to realize that there's no judgment in the other realm, what I realized when I was in the other realm is that not only is there no judgment, in that realm, there is no forgiveness. The reason there's no forgiveness is because in order to forgive someone, you need to have judged them for doing something wrong in the first place. when you don't judge them, or when you haven't judged them for doing something wrong, when you can actually see through all the layers, the filters, all the layers of stuff that has covered this diamond, when you can look into their eyes and you can see the diamond inside, and when you can see the dysfunction that has caused them to do what they've done, you realize that there is no need for forgiveness, because all you feel for them is compassion and empathy for where they are now. Now, if you don't feel that way for someone yet, if you're still feeling anger, don't beat yourself up. Don't tell yourself, oh, I should be able to see the God in their eyes. Don't beat yourself up, because remember, there's the God within you as well. And you have to uncover that first before you're able to see it in other people. So don't beat yourself up. And the way to get to that part within you is to embrace all of you. Every part of you, even the part of you that judges, even the part of you that feels like taking revenge, even the part of you that gets angry, even the part of you that feels fear. You have to embrace all of that first and love you for who you are, where you are now, in order to get to the part of you that is the pure essence, the pure love, and the pure God. So thank you for listening in, and let's go to our calls now.